You're listening to Dating After DV. Real stories, expert insights, and deep healing from women who've been there. Together, we're breaking the silence, naming the patterns, and rising from toxic to true love. You're not starting over, you're starting stronger. With me, your host, Christy. All right, welcome back to Dating After DV. Today we have with us Rosie Cutter, the astrologer to the stars. Rosie was huge in my own story. I haven't spoken much about the spiritual lean in this series so far. Rosie is well-versed in human design and destiny cards. So she is someone who has taught me so much of what I've come to learn and investigate. And a lot of that was through the ending of my relationship. I like to say that human design got me out of my relationship and destiny cards helped me prepare for healthy love. I had my first reading with Rosie April 18th, 2023. And she told me December 28th, there was healthy love coming into my life. And that's exactly the day I met my now husband. Rosie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. The Scorpio full moon, I'm going to be very emotional, I'm sure.
I saw that on the calendar. I was like, oh my gosh, how did we schedule this for the Scorpio full moon?
Yeah, I got into all of these different systems to help navigate and figure out my tumultuous, toxic love life. And it's funny, even when I read, my Western astrology is quite intense and lots of Scorpio and lots of Taurus and a grand fixed cross. So just basically everybody'd look at it and their eyes would come out of their head. But then even the destiny cards was like, the Queen of Clubs has some of the most difficult relationship karma in the deck. And when all these things, and when I was 20 years old, I was like, what, me? I'm self-sabotaging. I'm the problem. But oh my goodness, it really did help. Even in the obsession sometimes, maybe that can start out not healthy, right? You're like looking up your ex's chart and every person's dated or whatever's going on. But that rabbit hole then leads you into understanding this language that maybe when you're not in such a frantic space can be incredible as well. There's no guilt or shame there. I definitely got into astrology to stalk every person that I was able to figure out why I didn't like this particular girl and couldn't get rid of her. That was also very enlightening as well when it's like, oh, hey, this person's your Pluto and they're going to trigger unconscious feelings that you don't understand. And you can work with that. But yeah, man, love. There's a great analogy I wanted to start out with because I have chosen to be celibate for the last few years, 4 or 5 years now. I've indulged twice in the carnals of flesh, but it happened by some weird circumstance. It started out as a joke. But anyways, long story short, being out of the game of sexuality and the dopamine and the pheromones that come with it too, it often has me reflecting on this really great story. So there's this old Greek story, and in the past, man and woman used to be a circle and they were connected, right? So imagine we're like a big circle rolling around, like bubble, like we're in one of those bubbles or something. And we rolled up to the top of Mount Olympus and we tried to overthrow the gods. And so Zeus said, you know what? I'm going to split them in half. So they spend the rest of their lives looking for their other half and they never try to be godlike again. There's definitely a lot of things to look at around healthy relationships, toxicity in our culture of what we're bred to think that relationships should fulfill in our needs. That's another thing in astrology that can be good. It's like, hey, your husband or your boyfriend doesn't have to be your lover, your therapist, your best friend. Just like your astrology, you have every single sign and house, like you have ankles and elbows and all of the bones and accoutrements, hopefully. You can have different people in your life that fulfill different roles archetypally. And then, I feel like we burn out relationships a lot of times because we expect too much and we're to expect so much. And then it's going to make all our problems go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so much pressure. That's a recipe for disaster. So you brought up your birth card, you're Queen of Clubs. And one of the first things you told me in my reading, you told me about my birth card. I'm a 9 of Clubs. And you told me about the person I had just left. When I first heard your reading, I was mind blown because it shows the patterns, like it shows the dynamics and relationships. Does it make sense that every 9 is going to be on the receiving end of some kind of like taking advantage of or abuse? And then every 8 is, because they're the powerful card, they're going to be the bully or their abuser.
Unfortunately, takers find givers in this life. Everything is these dualisms: acid, base, positive, negative charge. So even in the human design, you can see how your open centers, you'll want to find somebody who fills in those open centers. It's like a puzzle piece. So if I fill in that open center for you and we're great friends, that's really wonderful and healthy. But if a person comes along who's an unhealthy person in general, but they fill that center in, you know what it can be like? The analogy I use, and you also see this in astrology, like people can have really strong chemistry and compatibility. But a person, if one of the person's natures is evil, imagine it's like when you eat Doritos, it sends a message to your brain that you just got a bunch of nutrients, but you didn't. So when you're around people who fill you in or click with you on a chemistry level, but they're not good people, that's where it can be dangerous. Because yes, you do have all this chemistry. You do probably have all these past lives, but that person in this life, don't forget as well, unfortunately, we do have free will. That's half the problem, is we have a little bit of free will. And so power, oftentimes in a certain sex, is used in a darker way than in the fairer sex. But yeah, I do often see, like, even the 9s, I would say 9s, 10s, queens, and kings all have a thing where you have a monkey on your back, you're built to give, you love people. So that's why you have to have the extra boundary around that, because otherwise the world will suck you dry, even with the best of intentions. So don't get me wrong. I've seen many dynamics where there's, for example, the 9 of clubs and the 8 of clubs is their partner, or 8s and 9s together, and they work really well. But the 8 is definitely on the high side of their power, and the 9 probably has a way to give to society, right? Because don't forget, you're never a prophet in your hometown. So when you're built to serve, I find that a lot of those cards, the more they do put the energy towards helping society, that creates a healthier boundary, whether it's your career. Even for me, I didn't want to go plan to be an astrologer. I wanted to be a book star. And I worked with kids and all kinds of different things, but I wanted to give, and I also wanted approval and attention, and I like people, right? So it was like I could find a way to give. And the more that I found music or astrology, or definitely working with kids and people less fortunate, the healthier my relationships got, because that channel was being plugged in. Like, it's not even the partner's fault. If you have a monkey on your back and you're on a mission from God, like the Blues Brothers or something, your husband is not going to be the one to be like, babe, you need to volunteer at the animal shelter. You have to do that. Of course, he'd rather have every last ounce of all your energy to himself. But when you create that healthy boundary, then you feel less taken advantage of, which is, I think, a theme for women in general. But yeah, it's not like, oh my God, is everybody who's born a 9 destined to have, just like projectors, like being the workhorse for somebody else's gain or having this bitterness? No, not at all. It's more knowing your audience and also saying no when the invitation's not up to par. And that's okay. It's good to say no to things. Sometimes I think we're also so desperate, myself personally, for approval and to prove myself, open heart, open root. And my wounds and insecurity led me to wanting to learn all these cool skills to share with people. But you can dance with that. But yeah, it's not, the more that, for example, you do something like this, it's like the scale gets balanced, right? And then it's not even possible for you to be depleted too much by the people in your life, because you already have carved out a better balance. Like, they can't, you're busy doing other stuff sometimes, your other invitations.
Yeah, that makes me think about isolation, like in a trauma bond or toxic relationship. There's this pulling away of someone from friends or family or work sometimes, like financial control, vehicles. I can totally see how that would be a contradicting pull. You've got, on one hand, someone that's pulling you away from all these things in the sense of purpose and self-worth and giving. It's hard to try to push back and be like, no, I want to be more here in the public and fulfilling my mission. Now that you're saying that, and now that I'm saying it, that is actually a huge part of how I escaped and stopped choosing it, really.
And because also, let's just be honest, obviously the resources on this planet have been allocated in a certain way. And now that women have more access to resources, things are shifting, which is also in line with the program of 2027. But I always tell women, imagine your root chakra. Where do men plug into you? Behind every powerful man's a powerful woman. They're literally plugging into you like an actual electrical plug. And I remember when I was in certain relationships, definitely had a lot of toxic ones, but even the ones that are not super toxic can sometimes be a little bit harder because it's like, do I need to work on myself? Do we need to go to couples counseling? For me, I have such an intense chart in destiny that it was obvious. But even in relationships, I remember I was doing well, but my partner did very well. Bless his little heart. But my psychics and teachers, what I was scared to leave, the financial factor is the number one factor in every single situation, especially domestic violence. It's even here in Aspen, we have an amazing non-for-profit. And it's interesting how even the best meaning situations where the guys or the partner, whoever is in the dominating position, isn't trying to take away your freedom, but in codependency, you don't want the workers to leave the field. Do you know what I mean? So you don't necessarily want them to be too financially empowered because then maybe she'll leave me because I'm not good enough or because I treat her like crap. And so I definitely want to hold on to the finances. And my teachers and psychics would be like, Rosie, you will make the money. I promise you. And I did 1,000-fold. It so goes to show how we are the ones that are creating life. Women have all the power. That's why everyone needs to read the bitch book, Why Men Love Bitches. We have the entire PDF. All of your friends need to have it. And it's applied behavior analysis. I used to work with autistic children as a speech therapist. It's the same exact thing. All behaviors, attention seeking, and men are in bad behavior patterns and we get wrapped up in it and it exhausts us. We become the nagging wife. And all of a sudden we're in this archetype that we never meant to be in. Reclaiming your power and understanding, if you all of a sudden had nothing, and I have had that in my life many times with nothing to even eat that evening if I didn't play music on the street. And there will still be, especially your family, your sisters and brothers as well, people that show up and there is always enough. This world is so full of creation all the time. But that's a big thing about relationship is this negotiation of resources. It's like, yeah, if I'm dedicating all my life and time and energy to you, that's time and energy I could be dedicating to making my own money, especially in this part of the world, thank God, in this time period. So there's this whole negotiation and ways that people are entrapped. And speaking of the isolation, that's a huge thing. And a lot of times, like we were talking about before we started, alcohol is the elephant in the room. It is the room. We're in the elephant. It's like a Trojan horse, but it's an elephant. And it's so sad. It's ruined many relationships for me. I've definitely been the self-destructive part in a lot of things too. But there's so many negative things that come and then even harder drugs that escalate from these sorts of things. And then the isolation comes. And I hear this more often than not at every rung of society too, every echelon of class, these isolation, especially alcohol, which is so widely accepted. And not to say, I love to have a glass of wine or two and chat with the girls. It can be so fun, but a lot of times anything more than that and so much darkness, so much people doing things they don't remember, regret, violence, so much violence, speaking of domestic violence.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I think that's the thing too, is a lot of times women are in situations where either they're using, the other person's using, they can't, and it just, you have to physically remove yourself. That's the only way that things work.
That's something I haven't spoken about yet publicly, but when I was in this toxic relationship, it was a regular daily thing. Like, I'm not joking, 4 bottles of champagne a day. Looking back, definitely it was how I was coping. It was definitely numbing.
Of course, it's a buffer.
It's absolutely. And it even got to a point where I'm like, hey, could we just not have alcohol in the house? Because then there would be blame. You're drinking this much. And I'm like, okay, maybe you're right. Let's take it out of the house. I'm not having a house without alcohol in it. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I start using like the apps, try to track things. And I couldn't get to the mind over matter. I needed that buffer. But over time, now it's been 2 years, I'm not drinking every day. It's a couple glasses with dinner before bed. And actually, just last week, I went to this called Aspen health screening. And it's a preventative body scan that he does. He uses thermography, I think it's called, and then ultrasound. This was just last Thursday. He checks all in my abdominal cavity and he's like, oh, your liver is sparkling clean. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. And the peace of mind. And it just showed me like my body is healing itself. My heart has been healing itself
over time. And when you're going to a place, there's twofold there, because I love to play house and I love to cook. And that, even in a healthy situation, it would be like having a couple glasses every night as I'm cooking. I love it so much, music and everything. But then all of a sudden, see, for me, I'm really vain. So I'd gain all this weight. And of course, it's not good on a variety of levels from the inflammation. But then also, when you're coming from a place of reverence and sacrament, and like you're in a healthy thing that you're not trying to escape anymore. Yeah. And my teacher would say, Dharma, he'd be like, Rosie, we're in the Kali Yuga, right? This is the age of destruction. This is hell. This is not the good place. So he's like, it's good people drink wine or do drugs because it means they want to change their consciousness. They just don't realize that they can change it through meditation. Easier said than done. But it's like, I don't want to feel. And when you're in an unhealthy relationship too, you're just going through the motions. Oftentimes finances are entwined. And also you don't start out getting slapped in the face on the first day. It's a gradual, it's like the lobster in the pot. And then start to question ourselves, and then your self-esteem, and then you're just exhausted from the roller coaster, of that always trying to get back to good. When they're real toxic, when it's like fucking fighting.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, and I remember one time a teacher saying to me, when the water's already hot, it doesn't take much to boil, right? But then you're just trying to get better after the last fight, whereas it's like, no, there's a reason you're unhappy and being triggered, because there is more to life than this. Let a pure individual in human design who, in my not self, have 5 roommates and wants to be in a relationship all the time, tell everyone that you are your own best company and you're actually fabulous company. And once kids come and stuff, most people are like, I wish I just had 5 minutes to think about it.
Yeah.
So really also like savoring being in your own aura, because I think sometimes when we get in relationships, we forget what life was like before this person, and that you have your own fractal and your own friends and your own good luck.
Yeah. So true. I've always been like the lover girl since I was 8. I can't wait to be married. I was so excited until my ex was my first. I was waiting for marriage. Like, I had everything invested in this basket. And it took losing that and moving on from there and finding my worth in, admittedly, a lot of it was wrapped up in it. It's like, I can't wait to be a wife and all this. And it was like, okay, what am I going to create from here after that? And it was getting to know myself through some fun dating in Costa Rica and just recreating a life outside of Canada, which was wild in and of itself, and feeling all the anxiety of that. But yeah, being just so content and happy alone in that little beachfront apartment. And I didn't need more than that. It really brought me to this ground zero where I'm like, okay, I'm totally happy with some eggs in my fridge.
It goes to show too, because we have so much fear of, if I don't have the love of this person, the resources of this person, the safety, the protection, I'm not going to survive. And it's like, no, you were born for a reason. The earth is here to protect you. You are the life force. You are hallucinating this hologram, whatever the hell is going on. Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. There's nothing more profound, I think, than a person being able to finally, after childhood, indoctrination, probably whether it's college, roommates, just getting into the grind and hustle, relationships, because that's often easy as well and makes sense. And then for somebody, most of the time I see it happen in the 30s or 40s, if we're lucky, to have their own space to themselves for a second is just incredible. It's the most beautiful thing because it's like you get to feel how good your energy feels, not mucked up with everybody else for a period.
Yeah. And I was making a decision from a completely different place. It's like my little life that I can totally afford. I'm not stressed. I'm actually saving money. It was like, if you're going to take me from this, it better be freaking good. And that's what happened. I was like, I'll take a chance. I'll come with you to California. But if it doesn't work out in a couple months, I'm coming right back here. I now have my network here. And it was just making a choice from total peace. And I got me. And instead of looking for someone to get me.
Because especially as a projector, but I think this literally goes back to the bitch book, everything. It's about the right invitation, and the right relationship can open up magical portals that will never happen. Speaking of sex, sex in its highest power is the ultimate manifestation. That's what all sex magic is. And whether you're with somebody or having your own fun time to get yourself, that is the time I even think to myself at that moment, love, healing, abundance, prosperity, because it is such a powerful thing. Sex is really this gateway that anything but the right relationship, that's absolute best, totally fucks up your life. I've had so many awesome like mentors and stuff, like living in Kauai, thank God. And one of my great mentors and friends, Barb from New York, I remember her telling me when, I worked for her and stuff at her store and fallen in love with those hot surfer boys in Kauai. Man, I had no idea what was going on. But she was like, Rosie, every person that you meet, even friends, they lead you in a direction a tiny bit, but it's hard to tell. It's like sailing. It's hard to tell at the time that you're slowly being veered in one direction or the other. And what direction do you want that to be? I even see that in the astrology. It's interesting. There's a great book, and this guy, he talks about, and he's a Vedic astrologer, but you see this in every system across the board. So let's say, not to say everything's so dogmatic, but let's say you have someone and they are deeply wounded in their house of relationship and they haven't done the work, right? I'm deeply wounded and but I've blown my brains out with lots of psychedelics and different things to try to take myself off the market. So if someone has a deeply wounded house of marriage, and then you come along and you yourself have a really nice house of marriage and love relationship, you get over that first bump and they have a nice house. Once you meld together, you are affected by their chart. So if he has a chart that says his wife is always broke and it's a problem in relationship, when you marry him, you can stop making as much money.
Interesting.
And that is the example the guy used. He was like, me, myself. And he was like, even being an astrologer, I still married this woman anyway. I was in love with her. And then eventually the relationship didn't work because also in a lot of these old ancient astrologies, they say you can tell whether a relationship is successful or not by is it making you money or costing you money? And all the toxic relationships I've ever been in were a drain energetically, financially. And then some people you get with, even friendships, whatever, and it's easy and things are luckier. And you guys, and that is the basis of a lot of the world's viewing of how things work. And it's like it's inviting a puppy into the house. If I invite a dog into your house and he's a really cute little puppy, but he's covered in mud, he's going to get your white carpet dirty. You're going to have to clean up after him. You didn't go lay in the mud, but he's in your house now. And that is something to be said. Like sometimes not to be paranoid Scorpio, but you can definitely use the astrology to see who's like maybe a little more on the edge than others. If somebody's chart is like this person has deep emotional intimacy issues and often cheats, maybe that person also is now 50 years old and amazing and has burned through all of that and done all this amazing work on themselves. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Is that something you can see in like a human design chart?
Well, I'll use myself as an example. So I have touch. They do say touch is one. I also have the 41. My son is in the 40.
Mm.
So I have no 30. I have the 36, no 35. That's all about this experiential way. It's very sexual. Except with all the hanging gates, it's like this projected sexuality. So also in the Destiny card system, the Queen of Clubs and my second card, the Five of Clubs, are considered the two most unmarriageable cards in the deck in a certain sense. Now, does this mean even in Vedic astrology, also I have a special placement on my house of marriage? However, does this mean I'm never going to find happiness? No. Did I like what I read this at 19? No. Was I supposed to marry some guy and do his laundry for the rest of my life from 19? Probably not. And obviously now that I'm 40, and it's so much better every year that you get older, it's so much better. I can't believe it. But yeah, I'm like, wow, I did have these relationship karmas. I have the 14 too as well. So I often go my own way. I left my relationships to go to different locations, go to different places. So yeah, I bet if somebody was getting a reading from me on me that was dating me and they're like, here's the girl's birthday, the astrologer probably would have been like, have fun. This will be a wild ride, but I don't know how long you'll be able to hang on. I know plenty of people with my birthday who have very loving, stable relationships. They also still usually have really big careers or big personalities and really doing a lot of stuff. And my hats are off to them. Good, I think, but I think that you can see that in some of the charts. I also think that shouldn't necessarily be weaponized. There's so many parts of the chart. So let's say somebody's like, oh, he's got all this Gemini, and but he's got like a Cancer moon and a Capricorn rising. Like he's going to be very grounded. That's why it's important to have more of a holistic point of view, because I've got a bunch of stuff in my chart, all this Taurus that's like Betty Homemaker. And then I've got all this Scorpio, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll and demon slayer. My job is to try to balance out the two, like I think every woman. But yes, I think you can see certain personality types. And I also think trust your gut. And that's the other thing about waiting to have sex. Like the bitch book says, it's not even about morals. When women have orgasms, we release oxytocin. This is the bonding hormone that we release when we breastfeed, and it makes you fall in love. Men do not release that every time they have an orgasm. Listen, you're in a loving, stable relationship and the heart chakra's open, definitely. But women, we are biologically wired. So just speaking from personal experience, let alone doing tens of thousands of readings, when we jump into things quickly, physically, I think that there is a blindness that happens on a biological level. We miss certain red flags. Trust your gut and trust your instinct, but it's hard to do that when we jump into bed quickly. And my chart, I didn't want to read this either. Taurus North Node, they're like, you must wait to sleep with somebody. If you sleep with somebody too soon, you can even ruin a perfectly good relationship. And it's like, did I listen? Of course not. But I see it and I validate it as true. But if you're hanging out with somebody, even for 2 months, 3 months, you're going to start to pick up on some weird shit that you will not pick up on if you sleep with them right away. I've been there 100 times. You're so drunk on dopamine and on all of these different things. And that's often what happens. You don't often hear these like crazy Nightline stories where it was like, they were good friends for 2 years. And then he like isolated from her whole family and killed her. Like it's not the same as like getting in this whirlwind romance. And it's so fun. You're talking to somebody who's like the archetype of all first house, seventh house. Let me look to the other to find my identity. And not bad looking. So I got lots of invitations for wild rides. But it never ends up well. It really, every now and then, 20% of the time, people are like, we met and it was this wild, amazing thing. And now we're together with our 3 babies. But those are probably people who weren't in toxic places. They were in healthy places. They're not maybe engaging in activities that can bring out the worst sides of people. It's a drug, man. Sex is a drug. Love is a drug.
Yeah. Yep. I see the difference of coming from a healthy place versus toxic, and then not having known that I was in a toxic place, just for some reason, so willing to participate. I think for me, a big part of getting back to that healthy place from which I made different decisions with being in my own energy and knowing again what it feels like when my intuition pings, right? Or knowing how I feel about something. It's like I had this space to retract back into my own energy rather than being on this wild ride or this toxic, constantly catering to someone else's emotions or what their perspective was.
Yeah, it takes a while to get back to baseline. Some things that help me and I've seen that are really useful and inexpensive, like Bach flower essence, the rescue remedy, because that is basically like what they gave people before Valium. And going through that, doing some drops of the tongue, it's very affordable. Another thing I take is lithium orate, which is salt-derived lithium, like you'd get in lithium hot springs or something. I take that before bed, but these are things that can help tell your nervous system that you are safe and okay. Tryptophan is another one. Definitely hot yoga, spending time with friends. Sometimes you really just need to be around other people to regain normalcy. So you're not just like sitting there like crying in your shower. But it's such a, I would say now having a small lens back, it's such a emotional roller coaster that can really do a lot to your nervous system, but then it's also boom, just like that. Every 28 days, you have new skin. You're constantly rebuilding yourself. And every decision that you go towards loving and taking care of yourself, the more that gets stronger, that habit in you. And yeah, being around friends, even just making new friends. There's all kinds of women's groups, grief groups, loved ones of Alcoholics Anonymous, all of these things where you can just go and plug yourself into a community. Because sometimes I feel like it's like you just have to distract yourself until you can let that wound heal.
Yeah, close to the end of my relationship and then afterwards, and something I actually gave up for that relationship, I really loved Latin dancing. And I got this idea at the beginning that I feel like this is going to be a problem if I keep doing this. But I was just so in love that it was like, oh, I don't even need to do this anymore. I don't really care. But then toward the end, I feel dead. Like I really miss salsa dancing and bachata. So I started doing that the last year that I was in that relationship, which caused tension. And it's just something that really brought me back to myself, especially in Costa Rica. That's one reason I decided to stay. That was huge in getting back, who am I again?
Reclaiming it and there's these amazing yoni steams, all these different great things that can be therapeutic, like a ritual to do to regain that. Also, I will say it's really important to get out and I've let so many things escalate. You don't do that these days with the amount of Pluto and, the river is moving so quickly. We don't need to let things fester into a point where they get so unhealthy that they explode, that we have to be recalibrating ourselves. I think that's the old paradigm. And I think we're done with that. Yeah, even as a collective, as a female species, there's been so much pain and suffering. And yeah, reclaiming herbalism, things that help nourish the womb, and Women Who Run with Wolves is a great book, like reading things that inspire. A Sideways Look at Time is a really amazing book showing how things have been manipulated towards gains that have not been gainful, I think. And even the way that we approach time in the seasons and our bodies. So I think it's just about reclaiming like peace in each moment. And the more that the feminine can heal, the more that we can help take back the power from all of this horrible, endless warmongering. I remember one time, one of the Dead were talking about how, the Grateful Dead, about how what really ended the Vietnam War was free love. Because all the women were like, because before the boys were bred to be a man, to get your wife and family, you've got to go and you've got to serve your country. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of good LSD and great stuff, music comes, and the women are like, we don't want you to leave. Come stay here. And the men were like, okay, and put down their arms. And it was like, it always stuck with me. If we have the power and we have all that healing, and the sexual frequency on the planet is skewed, but just like nature, like even a big old rotten metal car, you see the jungle just like grows right up out over it. The jungle's like everything goes back into Mother Nature's yoni, baby. There's no being disconnected from the source. We're automatically connected. That's why we're here. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of hot yoga and just yoga in general. That's also a new community. Sometimes that can be good for people and back into the body, and healthy foods and enough water. I hate to see so much suffering in the name of love.
Yeah, I love what you said about peace. For me, that's one of the biggest things, peace and acceptance and trust, not only of myself, but of the process. Like in the reading I had with you, and that's something I will always say is like, that was a huge part, again, for me, like not only getting back into the dancing and getting healthy again, but just understanding that the universe has my back. God has my back. They're the reason why this is happening. And we can look forward and we can look back and we can look at where I am right now and see how all of this is contributing for my best interest. It's something I got from you. That's something I will never stop talking about is you need to book a reading with Rosie. You can book with me, but Rosie's the OG. Where can people find you? Where do you like to have people find you these days for readings or otherwise?
Yeah, we've got the website, rosiesreadings.com, and then Rosie Cutter Readings on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, all the info's there. You can just reach out, text, you get sent a calendar, and yeah, we're doing all kinds of fun stuff. I think that now more than ever, having information that helps us stay inspired, stay excited, navigate the hiccups, even with the astrology. Hey, man, if you feel like you're on the precipice of something, but you can't leave now, don't worry. There's always these windows. Like it's summer again here. I have another chance. Like there's always more chances. But yeah. And I do work with a sliding scale so people can reach out to me if they need that. And I just can't believe that this is where my journey has led me. And everything I've ever done, whether it was to surf or play music or become a good skier, everything was because I was in love with some guy and wanted to impress a guy. And it's so interesting, the eternal muse that we chase. And I just want to say that all of the love is inside of us. Nobody can ever give you anything, even if they want to. That's not how it works. We can just share this psychedelic roller coaster ride and try to be loving and safe with each other. And I think in this new phase that we're going into, we are going to heal around relationships and we're going to let go of victim savior and codependency and addiction to the old ways. That it's just gone. Just like you wash your hair and you brush your teeth, it's just down the drain. And I think it's going to be easy and fun and beautiful. And I think Neptune and Aries is going to breed a new kind of love and a self-love and a courageous love, and being courageous enough to say, we're willing to do something differently. Courageous enough to say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I'm a little burnt out. And I think we're going to heal all the relationships. I think this is the greatest time to be alive.
I am here for it. I love it. Thank you so much, Rosie. It's a pleasure as always when we talk. Love doing these more public conversations with you. So thank you so much. Thank you for the work you do and for your time here with us today.
Yay, I love what you do, and I can't wait to binge on this. I can't wait to hear The Wolf of Wall Street. I told you this was your year. You're coming out.
You did tell me that. You said 32, and here we are. So
Thoughts around heart. Oh, big love to everyone listening across time and space. Just sending you strength and power.